Welcome to the Bible Mindset. Powerful, motivational, biblical sermon by Tony Evans. Let me tell you something up front. Bold and without apology. You are not too loud, too intense, too passionate, too gifted, too anointed, or too much. They're just too weak to handle the fullness of who you are. You see, we live in a world that wants to tame lions into house cats, turn eagles into pigeons, and water down the fire in your bones because it makes people uncomfortable. But here's the truth. You were never designed to fit in. You were crafted to stand out. You were built to break the mold, not become it. So when people say you're too much, don't shrink. Don't apologize. Don't second guess the brilliance God placed inside of you. You are not too much. They're just too small to carry the weight of your calling. Let that settle in your soul. The problem is not your shine. It's their shade. The problem is not your volume. It's their silence. The problem is not your purpose. It's their insecurity. They told you to tone it down. Be less. Speak softer. Move slower. But what they really meant was, your intensity threatens the version of me I'm not willing to change. What they labeled as too much was never too much. It was just more than they could handle. That fire in your eyes, it's not a flaw. That force in your voice, it's not a problem. The drive that keeps you pushing when everyone else is quitting, that's not something to hide. That's your divine weapon, forged in fire, sharpened in pain, and released for purpose. There is a reason you feel deeply, speak boldly, and move purposefully. You weren't born to float through life. You were born to pierce it. You were made to break walls, not walk around them. You were wired to walk into dead places and bring them back to life. And that kind of power doesn't come with silence. It comes with sound, with motion, with holy intensity that can't be faked or copied. It comes with being too much for people still trying to live in lukewarm faith and watered down dreams. Let them whisper. Let them raise their brows. Let them roll their eyes when you talk with conviction. That's just the sound of weakness. Recognizing strength, that's the echo of comfort zones being shattered by someone who refuses to play safe. Your intensity makes insecure people nervous because it shines a light on everything they settled for. They're not offended by you. They're offended by the reflection of who they could have been if they had chosen courage over comfort. You didn't survive what you survived to now live quietly. You didn't wrestle lions in the dark just to show up like a lamb in the daylight. You've been through too much to shrink. You've walked through too much fire to pretend you're lukewarm. That intensity was formed in secret places, in late nights when you cried and didn't quit, in seasons where no one saw your faithfulness, in valleys where your only strength came from above. And now they want you to mute the result of that warfare because it makes them uncomfortable. Absolutely not. You're not for everyone, and you're not supposed to be. Some rooms can't handle your presence because they were never designed for your purpose. You walk in carrying the sound of destiny, and they're still speaking the language of doubt. No wonder you don't fit. No wonder your words feel too sharp. You were never meant to sound like an echo. You were meant to be a trumpet, and trumpets don't whisper. Trumpets don't blend in. Trumpets wake the sleeper. By faith, you are too loud, too direct, too passionate, too intense. But maybe you're just too awake for a generation that's still spiritually sleeping. Maybe you're not extra, maybe you're essential. The world needs your fire, not your filters. It needs your intensity, not your imitation of someone more palatable. Because palatable doesn't break strongholds. Comfortable doesn't cast out fear. Lukewarm doesn't move mountains. It's the heat, the force, the divine power of someone who knows they're called that makes hell tremble and heaven respond. That look in your eyes that people misread as arrogance, that's called focus. That weight in your tone that they mock as overbearing, That's called authority. That passion they mistake for drama, that's holy fire. You don't have to defend it. You just have to walk in it. You didn't come to entertain, you came to shift. You didn't come to be liked, you came to be used. And those who confuse your spiritual strength for ego simply haven't met someone unwilling to dilute their assignment for public acceptance. You've been folding yourself into corners you were never meant to fit in, bending your boldness to make others feel big, and swallowing your brilliance because the room couldn't handle your glow. Every time you second-guess your greatness to keep someone else comfortable, you rob the world of what it desperately needs, the unapologetic version of you. They told you you're too much and you believed them, so you shrunk yourself just enough to fit their fragile expectation. But here's the truth they never told you. Shrinking yourself never saved anyone, but your fullness might. You weren't made to walk small. You weren't made to apologize for what heaven called good. You weren't made to blend in so others don't feel outshined. You are created to walk in authority, speak with clarity, move with conviction, and be seen. And if your presence feels too big in small spaces, maybe that's the sign not to shrink, but to step out. There is no glory in playing small. There is no reward in burying what God put on display. The light in you wasn't put there to be dimmed. It was placed there to disrupt darkness. You think you're being humble by staying quiet, staying safe, staying invisible, but humility isn't hiding. Humility is knowing who gave you the light, not pretending you don't have it. When you shrink, you deny the very work God did in you. You become a shell, not a vessel. You mute the message you were born to carry. And the world doesn't need more muted messengers, it needs voices on fire. They say, don't take up too much space. Why not? Why should your presence be packaged to please people who have no vision for your assignment? Why should your greatness be minimized so small-minded people can feel tall? They weren't there when you cried your way through the battle. They didn't hold your hand when the promise looked impossible. They didn't hear the call, but they want to edit your answer. The nerve of trying to shrink something they didn't build. Every time you shrink, heaven watches the weight of your calling settle on ground that was never meant to carry it. You were meant to shake the ground, not hide in it. Playing small might make people comfortable, but it makes your spirit miserable. There's a war between your divine design and your desperate desire to be accepted. But acceptance without authenticity is slavery. You'll die 1,000 invisible deaths trying to be palatable, while the fire inside you screams for permission to burn. You can't play small and walk in purpose. The two can't coexist. You either rise or you reduce. And too many people are suffocating under the false safety of humility, when what they're really doing is hiding in fear of being rejected for their full self. But your voice wasn't made to echo, it was made to break chains. Your presence wasn't meant to fit in, it was meant to flip tables. The moment you shrink, the world becomes less of what it could be, because the part of you that was meant to shape it is being suppressed. They say, be humble. You say, I am, but I'm not hiding. They say, don't outshine others. You say, I was born to light the way. You're not arrogant for being visible. You're not prideful for being confident. You're not self-centered for knowing you carry something holy. There's nothing noble about pretending to be less than you are. The most dangerous thing you can do is act like you're average when heaven handcrafted you for greatness. Your destiny doesn't dwell in safety, it thrives in surrender to the fullness of your identity. And that fullness doesn't shrink, it expands. You've been carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. Trying to carry their opinions, their feelings, their fears, all while dragging your calling behind you, wondering why it feels so heavy. Let's get something straight right now. Their insecurity is not your responsibility. You don't need to tiptoe around their sensitivities when you are called to walk in confidence. You don't need to apologize because your obedience makes them feel exposed. You're not arrogant because you know who you are. You're just dangerous to every lie they built their comfort around. What they call too much is really too different from the comfort zones they cling to. When you walk in confidence, when you speak with clarity, when you